Welcome to the deep dive. We cut through the noise on complex topics and pull out the key knowledge nuggets for you. Today, we're tackling something pretty charged, definitely debated,
Uh-huh.
the public anger over Trump's stance on the Israel-Iran conflict.
That's right. And our sources for this deep dive, they lay out eight distinct reasons why Trump's support for Israel there, it's sparking this backlash. And it's coming from, a lot of different groups across America. It's messy.
Right. And our job here, like always, is to help you get up to speed quickly on this. Understand the different angles, the nuances of why people are reacting this way. We're not taking sides, just reporting impartially on what our sources say, helping you navigate it all. So yeah, let's get into why this is making so many people tick. Okay, so let's unpack this first reason. It seems like a big one. This fear, this real worry about the U.S. getting sucked into another Middle East war. What are the sources saying about that anxiety?
Well, what's really interesting here is how Trump's own words kind of feed into it. The material mentions him talking tough, controlling Iran's skies or demanding surrender, stuff like that. To a lot of ears, that sounds like he's, itching for a fight.
Hmm.
And that really hits a nerve, doesn't it? Especially after the long, costly wars in Iraq, Afghanistan. People remember those, and the feeling is they didn't exactly.
Yeah, definitely wariness.
Yeah.
And it's pretty striking that even some of his own supporters, right? Our sources mention names like Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene. They're calling this a betrayal of that America First idea.
Yeah,
The U.S. staying out of foreign messes.
exactly. So that internal contradiction is part of it, too.
So for you, the listener, it's about grasping this really deep-seated public weariness.
Mhm.
It's amplified by past wars and, yeah, even these political contradictions. Okay, building on that, the sources point to another layer here. This feeling of broken promises, anti-war promises specifically. That seems huge given his political brand.
Oh, absolutely. It's a core part of the narrative. He ran very clearly on ending foreign wars, not starting them. He was the guy who'd keep America out of pointless conflicts. That was the pitch.
Right.
So now, supporting Israel's potential strikes on Iran, well, to many critics, it just looks like a complete U-turn. The insight from the sources is that for some people, especially, parts of his Magi base, it feels like being duped.
Duped, yeah.
Like he's just tossing aside that whole non-interventionist vibe that helped get him elected just to, play war hawk. That kind of perceived flip-flop, it really erodes trust. It can split a base.
Okay, so moving from the, let's say, strategic and political angles, the sources also highlight something very practical, money. This idea that money and focus should stay home. What are the specifics there?
Yeah, the cost factor comes up again and again. Wars are incredibly expensive. That's just a fact. And many Americans are looking around at home and seeing, real problems. Think inflation, roads crumbling, healthcare costs. They'd much rather see those resources spent fixing stuff here than bankrolling Israel's fight.
So it's a clash of priorities.
Yeah.
Domestic needs versus foreign involvement.
Exactly. That's the core insight. People feel the focus should be inward right now.
And it's not just the direct spending, is it?
Yeah.
The sources also mention the ripple effects, the broader economic hit.
Right. A wider conflict, if the Middle East really goes haywire, well, that could spike oil prices, mess up the global economy. And that hits regular people directly, in their wallets. So it connects back to that basic economic stability everyone worries about.
Okay, so we've covered the fear of getting in, the broken promises, the cost. What about the moral side? Our sources talk about a profound moral unease.
Yes, this is another significant thread, the human cost. Our sources point out, look, Israel strikes have killed Iranian civilians. Iran's retaliation has hit Israelis. People are dying. And for a lot of Americans, it's just uncomfortable seeing the U.S. seem like it's cheering that on, especially if they think the war could be avoided or, maybe it's more about power plays than real necessity.
And the sources actually mention people asking questions like, is this really about Iran's nukes? Or is it just Israel flexing? That kind of questioning.
Exactly. That skepticism about the reasons for the conflict fuels the moral discomfort with the U.S. taking sides so strongly. It suggests, people are increasingly judging foreign policy through an ethical lens, not just strategy.
Okay. Beyond the human and economic costs, there's this fear of geopolitical blowback. Things spiraling out of control.
Yeah, that's a major concern highlighted in the material. A war with Iran could potentially light the whole region on fire. You've got groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, they might jump in. Escalation.
And bigger players, too.
Potentially. Big players like Russia or China, they have interests there. They could get involved, maybe indirectly, maybe more. The insight is this potential for a domino effect. a chain reaction with, as the sources put it, no off-ramp.
Which must sound terrifying to Americans who feel like they've just had enough of endless wars.
Absolutely. And then there's the direct risk, too. Iran hitting U.S. bases, U.S. interests. That puts American lives directly in the crosshairs. It makes it very real.
Okay, let's shift slightly.
Oh.
Another reason for anger seems to be about motivation. The idea that this smells like politics, not principle.
Right. This is about why people think Trump is taking this stance. The research suggests some folks suspect it's, well, domestic politics, pandering, maybe to rich donors, like Miriam Adelson is mentioned, someone who's given millions,
Okay.
or maybe to evangelical voters who often have strong support for Israel based on, biblical interpretations.
And our sources say people online, like on X, are actually calling it a sellout.
Yeah, that's the language being used.
Mhm.
Foreign policy shaped by cash, by votes, not by what's objectively best for the U.S. And that perception, whether it's accurate or not, it really stinks to people who want decisions based purely on national interest.
Makes sense. And then there's the media angle and just the general public mood. How do those fit in?
Well, how the media spins this stuff, it obviously matters a lot. If the coverage paints Trump's support as reckless or, highlights that flip-flop we talked about, it tends to turn people against it. It shapes the narrative.
So the framing is key.
Definitely. Media framing amplifies existing worries and helps sort of crystallize the public anger.
And what about polls? If polls show people don't want this fight.
Yeah, that disconnect just fuels the anger too. If
Yeah.
most Americans are saying, no, we don't want this, and the stance seems to be heading towards it anyway, it feels like, the leadership isn't listening, it widens that gap.
Okay, finally, maybe the most unsettling reason mentioned, just the sheer unpredictability. The feeling that no one knows how this ends.
Yeah, war is always a gamble, right? And our sources really highlight how the situation escalated maybe faster or harder than expected. Israel hit Iran, reportedly to stop the nuclear program, but Iran hit back, maybe harder than anticipated.
Creating a tough spot.
Exactly. A difficult situation for any leader. Now, Trump, or any leader in that position, is sort of stuck. Escalate more and risk this huge regional mess. Or back off and potentially look weak. Either way, people get angry because it feels like stumbling into chaos with no clear win, no good outcome in sight. That uncertainty is deeply unsettling.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, the listener? I mean, this deep dive shows public anger here is really complex, lots of layers.
Yeah, it's a tapestry, like you said. People are ticked off because it feels like it risks dragging the U.S. into another costly, bloody, unpredictable war.
That doesn't seem to clearly help Americans back home.
Right. And it clashes with his own anti-war image, drains money needed here. And to some, it feels like a political favor, not sound policy.
Plus the moral questions, the global risks, the media spin, and just, not knowing how it ends.
Add all that up, and you've got a recipe for a lot of frustrated, angry people across the spectrum. Understanding all these different viewpoints really helps you grasp the whole picture.
Absolutely. This issue, with all these facets, fear of quagmires, broken promises, money drain, moral unease, geopolitical risks, political motives, media influence, sheer unpredictability, it's a huge challenge. So thinking about all these reasons for public anger, it leaves us with a question for you to consider. What aspects of international relations do you think leaders should prioritize most when they're thinking about military action, about alliances, especially balancing those domestic concerns we talked about with global responsibilities? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.